Fake archaeology, satellites and UFOs, a mysterious labyrinth, and thousands upon thousands of crocodile mummies, some of which are fake. Okay, so a few days ago, Joe Rogan suggested that the US should actually go and invade Egypt. I'm hoping he's joking, but he wants to occupy Egypt in order to excavate some of the stupid fake archaeology crap that he believes in. Let's check it out.
Seems to be this unidentified metallic object that's freestanding in this room. It's about 40 meters long, and it seems to be tic-tac shaped, is what this report said. So
it's a UFO. There's a UFO in Egypt.
The aliens did it. I don't know.
I mean,
it's tantalizing.
Could you imagine? Can you imagine if they get in there and they really do find a recovered spacecraft? Yeah, then what do we do then? Because if this is a public excavation, that's the question. Yeah. We would have to bring in the SEALs. We need to lock that place down. Maybe we need to occupy Egypt just to figure out how to fucking get this done.
Occupy Hawara. Let's just just Hawara.
You'd have to occupy the whole country. You'd have to bribe them something, give them money, whatever you got to do. Like if I was a president, that would be like my number one priority.
I really do not know whether to laugh or cry about this. This is just off the rails fucking kooky. And I don't just mean this clip. The entire episode is an absolute clown show designed to amuse and fool us.
Get Zahi to do mushrooms. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to get him to just drop it all.
Be interesting.
Cut the bullshit.
Become the sun god. Yeah.
All right. So this is Archaeology with Flint Dibble, and I am Flint Dibble, the sun god in the flesh. Let's dig our way down into the rabbit hole on this one. So look, I really did not intend to do another video about Joe Rogan so quickly on the heels of addressing him in my recent Pyramid video, which is a fabulous video that you should watch right after this one. But this recent Joe Rogan episode, it really needs a quick reaction from an archaeologist because it is going absolutely viral in both the UFO and the fake archaeology communities. The ridiculous claims promoted here by Ben Van Kerkwyk, aka UnchartedX, are combined with some very malicious lies about sociopath archaeologists covering up secrets of the past, and it really just goes to show how absolutely unserious how these people are. They are worthy of ridicule. As an added bonus, the Site of Hawara, where we're headed today in Egypt, is one of the coolest archaeological sites ever excavated. The real archaeology from Hawara is just absolutely going to blow your mind far more than this fake crap. That said, the story behind the fake crap here is, I'm not going to lie, well, it's actually kind of a crazy rabbit hole. It's a story. It's a real story. So, okay, the episode that we're checking out is from a few days ago. JRE number 2417 with Ben Van Kerkwyk, also known on YouTube as UnchartedX. He also discussed this topic a couple months ago with Joe on another episode, and Ben, of course, has a video of his own. The combined views of these are over 5 million, and that's just on YouTube, not including Spotify. Let alone all of the other knockoff videos created by other fake archaeology channels who have jumped on this bandwagon. So, okay, Ben is a boilerplate fake archaeology influencer on his UnchartedX YouTube channel. He's the type who likes to claim he's an independent researcher dedicated to ancient engineering and technology, but he really doesn't do any real research beyond just finding a few crazy things to say about archaeology in order to get you to click, 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 click on his channel. And he's pretty good at it. He gets a lot of clicks. Plus, he's certainly got the attention of good old gullible Joe.
I remember I was in the gym while I was watching it, and I literally stopped working out. I was like, okay, I got to pause this because this is not something that I can consume while I'm working out. I need to really pay attention to this because it's so wild.
Yeah, this one is absolutely wild. Now, you might know Ben's UnchartedX channel. It's perhaps most famous for claiming that ancient Egyptian granite vases are simply too perfect to have been made by those ancient Egyptians. I have been asked by many of you to address the granite vases, and I am slowly working through the ultimate debunk video of this topic. But it was not brought up in this conversation, so that's for the future. The reality is that Ben will just make up stuff to suit his narrative. He's one of the people who believes the Sphinx at Giza was carved earlier than the pyramids, without any evidence except for random suppositions and, of course, fake fabricated evidence. Like when he told Rogan that the ancient Greek historian discussed the Sphinx.
So there's not, the stories of this Hall of Records and these rooms beneath the Sphinx go back thousands of years. Like, I mean, just not just the Arabs, but also Herodotus and these other guys also talked about that whole area, the Sphinx and everything else being vastly more ancient even than the pyramids.
Look, this is completely made up. It is either a flagrant lie or Ben is the worst researcher in the world because he's not bothered up to look up some stupid shit he heard on somewhere on the internet. Herodotus describes his trip to Egypt and Giza in Book 2 of the Histories, but he never claims the Sphinx is older than the pyramids, nor does he mention a Hall of Records. In fact, no ancient historian from Egyptian, Greek, or Roman times mentions these ideas. Even worse for Ben is that Herodotus doesn't mention the Sphinx of Giza at all. Not even once, which means Ben is just lying here. Herodotus was much more interested in the pyramids.
This pyramid was made like stairs, which some call steps and others tiers. When this, its first form, was completed, the workmen used short wooden logs as levers to raise the rest of the stones. They heaved up the blocks from the ground onto the first tier of steps. When the stone had been raised, it was set on another lever that stood on the first tier, and the lever again used to lift it from this tier to the next.
There you go. That's for all the people that think we need high technology or magic to build the Great Pyramid. The ancient Greeks and Romans really thought that they could do it with the technology that they had: levers, pulleys, manpower. In a low-tech world, the pyramids appeared as a realistic monument, something that could be done to those who lived in ancient Greece and Rome. So why don't we believe? But look, if you're going to make big claims like Ben does about history and archaeology, you got to roll up your sleeves and do some actual research. Like, actually read the frigging book before talking about what an author says. I mean, come on, he doesn't even mention the Sphinx. By the way, I've got a whole video on the geology and erosion of the Sphinx. Go check it out also after this. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of the main topic here. The recent interview with Joe Rogan starts off with a discussion of the so-called Labyrinth of Hawara in Egypt. And that's what I want to focus on here because this story is off the rails.
We're talking about the great lost labyrinth of ancient Egypt, which was described by figures like Herodotus, Diodorus Siculus, Pliny the Elder. Figures from antiquity, these authors, and they've described it as being greater in magnificence than the pyramids. Like they had these just mind-bending descriptions of what this site was, like multiple levels, 3,000 rooms. You would get lost in it. It had giant courtyards with pillars all made from, I mean, one guy, I think it was Strabo, described the roof as being a single piece of stone, which I don't think it was, but it's describing those perfect joins that you see in the real megalithic work from Egypt. So it's this giant mystery. We know it's there, and it was kind of lost to time until we found it again, basically. It was discovered. It was always known about because there were clues about its location. It was always theorized to have been at this place called Hawara, which is near the Fayum in Egypt.
Okay, this so-called labyrinth at Hawara is a fantastic example of the difference between exaggerated ancient mythology and our on-the-ground archaeological evidence, with the added twist, of course, of some modern pseudoscience quackery that is just thrown in like the cherry on top.
Let's go way out there and put that fucking tinfoil hat on tight. If they open up the labyrinth, if they figure out a way to drain the water, and they do find out that 40-meter long metallic thing is something from another place.
Interdimensional.
Something from another place.
Right.
No. Let's put down the tinfoil hat before we go into the labyrinth, as Joe calls it. We'll get there. But let's start with our actual evidence first so we can untangle this web of fantasies. Look, Hawara is easily one of the coolest sites in Egypt. Don't believe me? I'll show you. It's at Hawara where we can see eye to eye with ancient people. And I don't mean statues of pharaohs and gods, though there are some of those too. But these lifelike mummy portraits give us an intimate glimpse into the ordinary people who lived and died at Hawara around 2,000 years ago. These painted mummies were the big news when Flinders Petrie first systematically excavated at Hawara in 1888. They were the centerpiece of his display of finds in the Egyptian Hall in Piccadilly, plundered from Egypt for Londoners to gawk at and museums and collectors around the Western world to buy up. Which, of course, Ben, UnchartedX, completely ignores these amazing finds from Hawara.
Petrie initially focused on the pyramid. However, his primary purpose was always the labyrinth, and he He was well aware of these historical accounts, and he was trying to find it.
This is again simply wrong. First of all, the so-called labyrinth had already been found and identified by Napoleon's expedition and by Karl Lepsius in the 19th century. And when it came to Petrie, the reality is that if you open up the books and read Petrie's reports on Hawara, it's clear that his primary focus was absolutely these amazing painted mummies. In Petrie's main excavation report in 1889, it's the mummy portraits that are shown opposite the title page. Looking at the table of contents, the labyrinth only gets 4 pages, while the cemetery and mummies get 14 pages. In the book that UnchartedX, Ben, mentions reading and quotes from in his own video, Petrie's 10 Years Digging in Egypt, again, it's the mummy portraits that are shown opposite to the title page. Again, they're from Hawara. In this book, the labyrinth gets only 1 measly page of description. While Petrie says, quote,
"The cemetery of Hawara was a great resource for discoveries,"
which Petrie describes in detail for 12 pages with a focus on these painted mummies that he literally calls the greatest success from his excavations at Hawara. Again, Ben, supposedly an independent researcher, just has not done his research, focusing on 1 page and ignoring the rest of the book and Petrie's publications. And that misdirects his audience into some rabbit hole of a mystery far, far away. Far, far away from the reality presented by all the amazeballs evidence that we actually do have at Hawara. I know that some of this might come off as nitpicking, but his research gets even worse when it comes to the more provocative claims that he makes. But seriously, just look at these mummy portraits. You can see why Petrie and others were obsessed with them. These images provide a vivid, lifelike picture of past people. All of these people lived and died in a small town in Egypt along Lake Moeris, near the entrance to the Fayum oasis from the Nile, about 2,000 years ago. Right within view of Amenemhet III's pyramid and the famed labyrinth in front of it, it was a region that was bustling in the Greco-Roman period. The people who lived there in these later periods, the people we're looking at, they reused all the good stones from the earlier architecture of the Middle Kingdom period when Amenemhet III ruled the land. That's why his pyramid has crumbled so badly. All the stone casing has been removed, so the mud brick core is exposed to the elements. That's also why there's so little of the so-called labyrinth for Petrie to report on. Another major issue is the flooding. The Fayum is a watery region, and the water table is high here, and it was in antiquity too. Right now, there's a modern canal that goes right through the site. When Petrie explored the pyramid, it was also flooded badly back then. Dr. Chris Naunton gives a fantastic summary of the pyramid in his excellent video on the Labyrinth and the Middle Kingdom Fayum region. Let's tune in.
Nonetheless, as you can see, we've got an entrance passageway. Again, it's in the south, not in the north, following the Lahoun example. This proceeds sort of straight downwards into the ground. There's then a continuation which leads nowhere, a kind of blind passage, quite possibly a device to deceive robbers. The true route to the burial chamber proceeds at right angles to the entrance passageway. There's then 2 further right angle turns to the left. Those junctions are blocked with portcullises. You then enter the burial chamber, which itself is of a very unusual design. This is the entrance to the pyramid as it is now. It was waterlogged in Petrie's time, and he describes sort of grubbing around in the water inside the burial chamber. Since Petrie's time, the internal compartments have been completely flooded. So if you've been to the site, you'll know that you can sort of walk a few paces in through the door here before you hit the water, and the passageway is not only full of water, but it's completely choked up with debris now as well. So there's really very little to see beyond, I don't know, 5 or 10 meters or so into this passageway. This is what Petrie had to say about it. I carefully cleared out all the chips and stuff from the sarcophagi. This is inside the burial chamber. There were 2 sarcophagi, one of the king and one for his daughter Neferuptar, who it seems, in fact, was probably eventually buried in her own pyramid, which is just nearby, discovered in the middle of the 20th century by an Egyptian mission. Groping under the water, he says, I found some bits of bones, much charcoal showing the coffins have been burnt inside. Also grains of burnt diorite and granite, which were probably parts of inlaying of hard stones in the sarcophagi. We found a beard of lapis lazuli for inlaying among the rubbish in the chamber. The chamber itself is, as I mentioned, is of this this ingenious sand hydraulics design, where all of the burial chamber is cut of a single piece of stone, except the ceiling slabs. Those are also made of very large pieces of hard stone, the last of which is lowered into position by an ingenious sort of system of props and chimneys and sand. Some blockings are removed. The sand flows out of these so-called chimneys into little chambers at the side of the burial chamber. The props then lower down into the chimneys, bringing the final roofing block down. And this is exactly what we see elsewhere.
One of the cool things about this pyramid at Hawara is that we probably have an architect's model of it. In Amenemhet III's Valley Temple at Dashur, there's a limestone model for the layout of the inner chambers of a tomb that match well with those for his pyramid right here at Hawara. It's just like looking at a schematic apartment plan today. And it's a clear testament to the architectural planning and expertise that the ancient Egyptians applied into building a pyramid.
It is a fact that the Egyptians left us with no explanation of any kind. Out of the tens of thousands of hieroglyphs all over Egypt, not a single one of them describes how they constructed the pyramid.
It's just not true. We have day journal accounts of workers working on the Great Pyramid and other pyramids. We have guidelines and quarry marks. Anyone who thinks the Egyptians did not leave evidence behind for how they designed and built their monuments is either just lying or such a lazy researcher that they ignore all the evidence that we actually do have. Evidence that is widely available online and in free libraries, on my YouTube channel, on David Miano's YouTube channel, and in so many other places. And ignoring that stuff is lying by omission. A few cool components of this tomb model even include construction details for the ceiling and the defense system that are identical to those found by Petrie in the Hawara Pyramid. As Mark Leaner notes,
one of the enormous sideways sliding blocking stones is showed in wood. The antechamber, burial chamber, and the system for lowering the last ceiling block, as at Hawara, are all faithfully rendered.
Pretty cool stuff, or at least I think so. So, okay. Let's dive into this so-called labyrinth, the heart of the mystery. In front of the pyramid is the massive complex that's often called a labyrinth. And it's this monument, or rather the bare ruins of it, combined with exaggerated ancient testimony, that has captured the attention of fake archaeology YouTubers like UnchartedX or his buddy Michael Button and their gullible audiences.
This could be the most important archaeological find of the century, because by using modern technology, researchers may finally have found the lost labyrinth of ancient Egypt. However, it's not been easy going, and there's certainly some resistance to these claims.
Wow, the most important archaeological find of the century? Really? Really? Let's see if these claims hold water first. Look, first of all, the friggin' labyrinth had already been discovered and fairly thoroughly excavated by Flinders Petrie, like well over a century ago. We already know quite a bit about it. So it's not really a find from this century. But, go on, Michael. Sell it to your audience. Unfortunately, most of what we know about the so-called labyrinth is actually pretty boring. The people who lived in the later Greek and Roman settlement of Hawara, those same people we can see face to face from their mummy portraits, they were the ones who dismantled this labyrinth. And they reused most of the stones for the buildings in their city. Those are the small buildings we can see here on the left of the canal. So, unfortunately, not a whole lot of the monument is left. Even Ben, aka UnchartedX, agrees that there's not much to see at the site.
If you go to Hawara, I've been to Hawara several times. I've been fascinated by this story for many years. This is pretty much what you see when you get to Hawara. There honestly isn't a whole lot to see at Hawara. The Pyramid of Amenemhet III, as identified by Flinders Petrie, which we'll get into, is a mud brick pyramid.
For viewing today, there's just a few blocks strewn around the surface, and the large platform of stone chips upon which the enormous structure was built.
You can see the mud brick of the pyramid itself, and then as you sort of span out around here, you see the green of the Fayum, but just the sands of the the Egyptian desert that run through here, and you can see it's just all these big fields, and everything we can see here is supposedly where the labyrinth was. Now, when you go out here and walk in this sandy area, you actually get some pretty significant clues that indeed there was megalithic building and the typical things that you might see at a place that contained large objects and architecture made from megalithic stone. There are big pieces of Aswanian granite, big rose granite chunks laying out here. This piece that you're seeing here is actually a fragment of a fluted column, so it's a broken piece of a large single-piece column that was out here. You can find these pieces of limestone, of even some cases alabaster, calcite, small pieces, the remnants from quarrying. Big chunks of granite are laying out here. People have obviously been digging around looking for stuff here for, I suspect, centuries upon centuries.
To Ben's credit, his description of the site itself is actually pretty accurate. While Dr. Chris Mountain provides some more details, it's essentially a similar description of the site.
The coronation name of Amenemhat III, which is just about visible on this fallen piece of red quartzite, which is, if you've been to the site, you'll probably have seen it. It's on the sort of banks of the canal, probably tossed out. Certainly came from the labyrinth anyway, it would seem. So this is the landscape in front of the pyramid. Obviously, this is the pyramid beyond. Again, if you've been to the site, you'll know there is a scatter of hard stones around the surface, and we can see the remains of some papyrus cluster columns here and some other chunks of hard stone, possibly columns, possibly doorways, possibly part of these carven figures of the kind that we've already seen, the sculptures of the king and his successor that Petrie found. These are found in this area to the south of the pyramid. So this is the area of the funerary complex, the temple attached to the pyramid, which is what was later believed to be the labyrinth.
Now, okay, the big discussion is not about what's visible. It's about what's not visible. What's underground, still waiting to be uncovered? What can we not see that we hope can tell us more? That's the mystery of the structure, according to Ben and others. And the big problem is that this is a web of lies. It's a classic conspiracy theory that claims that Egyptologists, and of course Dr. Zahi Hawass himself, are suppressing discoveries at the site. They're shutting things down, those gatekeepers.
Petrie went there and dug it up, Flinders Petrie in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he found massive stone slabs, and he thought he was standing on its foundation like it'd been quarried and taken away. And rather than that, though, it turns out he was most likely standing on the roof of like the top layer. It was like 10 meters below the ground.
Is so
he never got
nuts
quite in. But then in the Mataha expedition happened, I think, in the mid 2017 or 2015. There was an expedition run by a guy named Louis de Cordier in partnership with the Egyptian government. They used ground penetrating radar, sonic techniques, like well established subsurface techniques, and they found it. They found these massive cyclopean walls that were meters thick. It was a labyrinthian structure. It's well verified. It's below the water table level of what's on that site now. So you have water table sort of 5 meters below the surface. The labyrinth starts at 9-10 meters. And there was some controversy around that report because it was buried. So he found it. They never published the report. It was squashed by Zahi Hawass. This is according to Louis de Cordier. He threatened him and his team with national security sanctions if they talked about it. It just was put away. He waited a few years. He finally released the report. It's like, holy shit, we found the labyrinth.
Wow, threatened with national security sanctions? This is a big claim. And it's also blatantly false. It's so blatantly untrue that it's easy to disprove with some basic Google debunking. Let's break it down. So first up, Ben made a minor mistake in that clip with Joe. This Mataha expedition happened in 2008. Ben's gotten the date correct in other contexts, so it's just a small slip up with numbers. It happens. We all know that. The bigger falsehood, though, is the lie that Ben repeats, one that was originally made by eccentric artist and almond farmer Louis de Cordier, that he was threatened with silence about this project, as he writes about on his Substack. At the heart of this conspiracy theory is the claim that he was shut down with these national security threats, and that he published online his own report of a geophysical survey of the Labyrinth of Hawara. because he was blacklisted by Zahi Hawass and the Egyptian authorities from publishing it further. Decordier makes this claim on his Substack, The Labyrinth of Egypt. But I cannot emphasize this enough. This is all a lie that is easily disproven with due diligence, some basic research on Google and in libraries.
And, this all started in around 2008 with a guy named Louis Decordier and his expedition to Egypt, which was called the Mataha expedition. Louis Decordier is a philanthropist. He's a Belgian artist. He was behind putting together a expedition to Hawara to go and search for the labyrinth using modern technology, things like ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, geomagnetism, things like that. He partnered up with the Supreme Council of Antiquities, as well as the NRIIG, which is the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, which is located in Cairo. Those are the guys that do the technical work.
Okay, Ben. So seriously, why don't you actually bother to do some research here, to look up the publications made by the experts from Egypt's National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, NRIAG? The team who did the technical work published their report on their findings in 2010. In 2010, in the journal Near Surface Geophysics, which is the exact same year that Decordier, an artist, not a scholar, published online on his blog his contrasting report using the exact same dataset.
Zahi Hawass squished and just suppressed the findings of the Mataha expedition. They sat on it for 2 years. So Louis Decordier sat on it for 2 years. And so around 2010, he created a website called labyrinthofegypt.com. It doesn't exist anymore. You have to go back to the Wayback Machine. Maybe you can find it. But he created a website, labyrinthofegypt.com, and on it he wrote, "After 2 years of patience, we decided June 2010 to oppose all cunning and deceit by posting the conclusion on the labyrinthofegypt.com website." And on it he posted the paper, the Mataha expedition paper, which I've shown you the results from. You can still find this paper if you go and look hard enough.
So Decordier publishes this on his blog in June of 2010, but the paper published by the NRIAG experts has already come out. It came out in January of 2010, as you can see here. And so maybe you're thinking maybe this isn't the same team, but it actually is. It's the exact same team. This team acknowledges and thanks Louis Decordier in the acknowledgments of their paper. Furthermore, Louis Decordier's Substack and report also mention the same institution, the NRIAG, and the same people that are authors on this paper, specifically Dr. Abbas Ali. Finally, the materials published by Decordier in 2010 also use the same images that are published in the 2010 article by the scholars from the NRIAG. The reality is that Louis Decordier is, by his own admission, not a scientist or an archaeologist. He's an artist. He clearly had a split, not with Zahi Hawass and the government of Egypt, but with the scientists who actually ran the project. He didn't like their results. They published their results, which were fairly standard and confirmed existing archaeology and historical accounts. Decordier, however, he wanted the findings to be grander and more mysterious than they actually were. So he claims he was being canceled and shut down, when in fact he just doesn't have the expertise to interpret this kind of stuff. The methods used by this survey, published in 2010, specifically something called very low frequency electromagnetism, abbreviated as VLF-EM. It's the same method used by many commercial metal detectors, but with better equipment that provides more precision. And the results essentially verified what was already known about the site, archaeologically and historically, but they provided additional detail with this kind of subsurface scan. Their abstract, for example, stated,
Results show a large group of elongated and square subsurface anomalies at shallow depths, connected in some parts and separated in others. The spatial distribution of the anomalies significantly matches a historical description by Herodotus.
In the conclusion, they stated,
There are elongated structure features that may correspond to parts of the Labyrinth mortuary temple complex. The VLF-EM technique showed a fairly good result as a means of archaeological prospecting, as seen from Figure 11, that outlines the expected shape and structure of the archaeological remains of the Labyrinth mortuary temple complex.
This is super cool stuff. It really is. This underground electromagnetic survey significantly corresponds to existing archaeological and historical evidence, and it was fully published within 2 years of the survey, despite the false claims by Decordier that the team was suppressed. They simply weren't. They published it in normal time. I really just don't understand why an independent researcher like Ben van Kerkwyk cannot find this publication. All it takes is a bit of Google debunking to prove that Louis de Cordier is willfully misrepresenting the situation. He's getting the facts wrong, and the facts are readily available. After all, surely de Cordier knew that the colleagues he praised published this article. And of course, the team from the NRIAG with Professor Abbas Ali, who de Cordier mentions on his blog, has continued their research in the decades since. They're not shut down. They're continuing their work. They've published another paper with further methods in 2024, just last year, a paper that is freely available in the Delta Journal of Science. And they're engaged in an ongoing collaboration with a team from Nottingham Trent University called Virtual Hawara. So this is research that's ongoing. It's not shut down. There's no gatekeeping here. But of course, the story gets even wilder. Another team, a joint Polish-Egyptian team, was also investigating underground around the same time using ground-penetrating radar. This was a combined archaeological and geological investigation with a focus on understanding the flooding in the region. And the falsehoods that Ben tells for this story, they get absolutely wild.
This is not where the story ends, because around the same time, 2008, 2009, there was another expedition done by a Polish university along with Cairo University, and they went out and did a geological exploration at Hawara. They actually went in to try and figure out where the water was coming from. This was not an archaeological expedition. It was much more of a geological effort to try and figure out where the water's coming from in order to block or redirect its flow and just start to figure out, what do we need to do to remediate this site. So they went and dug a whole bunch of different boreholes all around the site. They were digging geological test pits, which you can see here, dating different levels of strata down a few meters. They also did ground-penetrating radar here, and interestingly, from their report, they found many ground-penetrating anomalies, which were interpreted as voids being found. So they also essentially rediscovered the labyrinth. Although this research was done in 2008 and 2009, it wasn't published anywhere until around 2017, because also, like the Mataha expedition, this was also shut down by Zahi Hawass. In fact, this was shut down a little more abruptly than the Mataha expedition, and this is quoting, again, the expedition team members, and in their paper, you can see the URL on the slide, this is what they wrote. It says, Dr. Zahi Hawass halted the mission, briefly jailing its director, Professor Aladdin Shaheen, then Dean of Cairo's archaeology faculty, who was swiftly ousted from his post, end quote. Hawass actually jailed the guy who went out there and dared to actually try and solve this problem, or to start trying to solve this problem.
This is absolutely insane here. We are now down the rabbit hole. There are so many things demonstrably false, absolutely wrong, complete lies. It is absolutely driving me Google debunkers.
The Google debunkers are trying to cover it up. The government is full of fucking Google debunkers.
Google debunkers, Google debunkers, Google debunkers, Google debunkers.
This guy drives me fucking Google debunkers.
I mean, come on here. Look, we can seriously disprove this insane claim of Zahi Hawass jailing an archaeologist with some basic Google debunkers. The sort of legwork that any good researcher should do before spouting this claim to millions of people. For example, Ben shows us a website to go to. If you follow the link that he showed on screen, you get to this technical report that he says mentions the jailing of Professor Aladdin Shaheen. You can go to the website yourself. I'll leave it linked in the description below. There is zero mention of him being jailed anywhere in this report. Not once. Nowhere on this page does it mention anybody going to jail or to prison. The only mention of Professor Shaheen is that he was part of the project agreement. He was part of the project, legitimately. Second of all, notice the author of this report. I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly. It's something like Dr. Adam Zinkowitz. While this technical report was published in 2017 on that online blog that Ben UnchartedX linked to, it's called Wisdom of Nations, all you have to do is Google Adam Zinkowitz and the site name Hawara to find more published details. So, before 2017, when that report was put online, in 2015, Dr. Zinkowitz published the GPR research in the journal Archaeologia Polona, a Polish journal. It's in English, though. There's no suppression of data involved. Ben just doesn't know how to do research. It's absolutely pathetic. But okay, what about the absolutely nutso claims that poor Professor Shaheen, the former dean of archaeology at Cairo University, was apparently thrown in prison by the big bad wolf Dr. Zahi Hawass himself? Look, Ben repeats this story frequently. Like when he was on Rogan in September, he said it there.
According to them, that information was also covered up because they also did ground penetrating radar surveys, also confirmed the labyrinth. The guy who was in charge of that in Cairo University was actually put in jail by Zahi. Again, this is on their report when the information finally came out in 2017. He lost his job, obviously, as part of it. So they covered that up too. But they had tried to
put him in jail for what?
I guess for working on the site. Like, I don't know. I don't know the reason. It's on their report though. That's what they say, is that he was jailed because Zahi allegedly halted the project and then put the guy in jail. This is what they say on the report from that expedition, that work, which came out like a decade after they'd done it.
Again, this is not in that report. It is nowhere in the report. These are just flat out lies. So, okay, where does this story come from? Well, it comes from a Substack article by, guess who? Eccentric artist Louis de Cordier. Back in April, he wrote, quote,
That effort revealed vast remnants between Petrie's layer and the bedrock at 18 meters. Findings later corroborated by the Egyptian-Polish mission 2008 to 2009, until Dr. Zahi Hawass halted the mission, briefly jailing its director, Professor Ala Eldin Shaheen, then dean of Cairo's archaeology faculty, who was swiftly ousted from his post.
I don't know what to say. Louis de Cordier provides no info to back up this sensational claim. But again, some quick Google debunking can prove it is all just a lie. Professor Ala Eldin Shaheen is still a prominent Egyptologist and archaeologist to this day. He's well known for his research. He is still a professor based at Cairo University with plentiful publications and talks over the last decade. He's also very active on social media with a recent Instagram reel about the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum.
Sure, we are here this afternoon in GEM, Grand Egyptian Museum, one of the fantastic, the greatest invention of the ancient Egyptian culture. All of that stuff we have it here inside that building. We hope, inshallah, finally will be officially open in next July 25th. You are welcome to come to Egypt, visit all of that monument, visit that great place, ancient Egyptian culture, houses in that building, Grand Egyptian Museum.
There he is. He's not in jail. He's a successful scholar. And guess what? If you go on Google, there are news clippings and academic publications in Arabic and in English documenting Professor Shaheen's research activities since 2008. For example, in 2023, he won the Arab Council of Arab Archaeologists Appreciation Award in recognition of his lifetime of archaeological research and teaching. What's also clear if you Google around is that Shaheen and Hawass have a very amicable relationship. An Arabic news report from 2020 states, quote,
Dr. Ala Shaheen, dean of the Faculty of Archaeology at Cairo University, said that Zahi Hawass is a meticulous researcher and a passionate lover of antiquities because he combines scholarship with practical application.
In 2023, Dr. Shaheen gave a keynote talk at the Zahi Hawass Center for Egyptology about his research into the Sinai Peninsula. Yes, he's going to go give a keynote lecture at Zahi Hawass Center after Zahi Hawass jails him? Come on. And guess what? Just last month, Dr. Hawass attended the PhD defense of one of Professor Shaheen's PhD students. At the presentation, both Dr. Hawass and Dr. Shaheen were awarded an honorary shield of Asyut University, and the photographs show them to be publicly friendly to one another. Louis de Cordier sure seems to be nothing more than a liar, and Ben Van Kerkwyk doesn't seem to do any research to fact-check anything from this guy's blog.
Has there been any proposal to do that? Is there any proposal to figure out a way to reroute the water?
Dave, so this is what I talked about in the video. There were some studies that started to happen to try and do that, and then the guy who was running the study got thrown in jail for talking about it. And then
nothing since then.
Nothing since, as far as I know.
Tell Zahi he can come on again if he does it. I'll have him back on.
I'll mention it. I would love to. I mean, I think it's a solvable problem, though. That's the thing.
We're going to get Zahi to do mushrooms. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to get him to just drop it all.
Be interesting.
Cut the bullshit.
Become the sun god. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, just let everybody love you for doing that, because they would. If we just turned a new page and just said, all right, let's go crazy.
I think, yes. Yeah,
He wants to be loved. He wants to be respected.
He does.
Everybody does.
True.
So open it up, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go. Give me a hug. Open it up. Start digging.
Yeah, let's go. Let's sink some boreholes and get some pumps in there and get this water out of here. I mean,
we're back full circle. Tinfoil hat time. Let's go, Joe. Let's fucking drop some mushrooms. Let's fucking party it up. I am the golden god. I mean, this is just insanity. Ben just keeps repeating Lying Louie without doing any actual research, despite calling himself a researcher. And Joe, gullible old Joe, he just eats it up and rolls along with it. And they're all just fucking flat out lies, which Ben keeps saying comes from this official report, but instead comes from a completely unreliable blog of an eccentric hermit artist known as Louis de Cordier. Seriously, all it takes is the minimal amount of research, basic Google debunking to unpick this web of lies. The evidence is really right there. It's quite clear. But okay. I guess 1 second. Got to get this tinfoil hat back on. It is time to descend even further into the rabbit hole. This conspiracy theory about suppressed electromagnetic, whoa, there goes the hat, and ground penetrating radar data sets which have not been suppressed at all. And they are published in academic journals. This conspiracy theory is now bolstered by new, completely unpublished satellite data that apparently supposedly confirms de Cordier's claims.
There's some controversy around that report because it was buried. So he found it. They never published the report. It was squashed by Zahi Hawass. This is according to Louis de Cordier. He threatened him and his team with national security sanctions if they talked about it. It just was put away. He waited a few years. He finally released the report. It's like, holy shit, we found the labyrinth. And then this spurred some other companies to use some of these new space-based scanning techniques. There's been at least 2 that have been done, very different techniques, but they found the same thing. They found that there is, in fact, a massive underground structure at this place called Hawara. It goes much deeper than what you could reach with those ground-penetrating radar and those established techniques. 60, 70 meters below the ground. There's multiple levels, 3 or 4 levels.
So, linking these obvious lies to these new data sets, let's clarify a few things. These data sets are not published at all. There is just a few images on various blogs, specifically Louis de Cordier, of course, right? Now, to Ben's credit, I'll give him a little bit of credit. He notes in his video that there's no transparency in the methods used of these space scans. There's no way for anyone to evaluate them since they're just a bunch of blurry images without data or methods.
My perspective on this is that, I do remain cautiously optimistic about all of these different new space-based scanning technologies. They're obviously still proprietary. There's still an element of a black box within them, right? So between whether it's Geoscan or it's Merlin Burrows or it's the Italians with their synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography approach, there's an element of a black box, right? It's not understood exactly what it is they're doing to produce their results. That said, there's a lot of promise in these technologies, like Geoscan, Merlin Burrows. They seem to have reference.
Ben is absolutely correct. We have no way to assess these images because the data and the methods used to create them have not been published. They are the definition of a black box. We just get a magical result with no idea how we're getting it. The earlier set of scans that he mentions were produced by a company called Geoscan, which never published a thing.
Some details have actually emerged about this technique, and it happens to be a company called Geoscan Systems, and they do remote sensing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about their technology and how it works because it's important as it kind of relates to the ongoing scans at Hawara as well as the SAR work that's happening elsewhere in Egypt. So these guys are talking about using remote sensing technology to look into the ground. They can detect anomalies down to around 6 kilometers deep using proprietary processing techniques. So the way they do this is they say that the breakthrough involves modeling light and its interactions with matter based on a more complete implementation of Maxwell's equations, coupled with a more complete understanding of the mathematical nature of the constant I, which is the imaginary number representing the square root of -1. Including these new insights makes complex spectral analysis more complete. Now, don't ask me to explain what that means. I don't know. Does seem like a fairly mathematical, statistical approach to it, but they go on. They say that filters are then applied which allow the detection and identification of subsurfaces by means similar to utilizing Fraunhofer absorption lines to identify substances in the atmosphere of stars. With more complete appreciation of the actual information contained in ordinary light, we can detect subsurface anomalies, which show up as a kind of interference in longitudinal components. This is what I had originally heard about this when I looked into it. The most information I had gotten out of it at the time, that it was a technique that was used to look at stars and try and look at the different elemental composition of stars. So what elemental substances are in the atmosphere of stars using some sort of statistical approach. This is kind of the telling point with a lot of these technologies that you see, and it's one of the reasons I think for a little bit of skepticism, certainly warranted with some of the claims that are made by them, but they also say that they regret having to withhold details of the process involved. It requires intensive computation, utilizing computer software and special processing hardware to apply our techniques. They're invoking, it's proprietary software, which is fine. It's their special secret sauce. The key is how do you prove this works? Well,
how do you prove this works? Well, you release the data and the methods used. Then they can be verified independently by people who know about these kind of technologies to determine if it's necessary to investigate the results on the ground. Without doing so, this is all just a bunch of gibberish. It's word salad, a range of complex terms that the general public cannot assess, and they're simply put just fantasies. This is not how science works, my friend. You present your evidence in a way that can be replicated and tested by other scientists. If you don't do that, then you've not produced anything that is meaningful, scientifically speaking. This is just pseudoscience. Instead of providing data and methods, they produce some pretty meaningless images, and then guess what? They advertise them on a podcast.
There was a 3D rendering of these scans that were made that Carmen Bulter briefly showed, I think on a podcast with somebody. I've not seen too many other results of it. These are the screenshots from that podcast. But you can see here, again, you see the pyramid, you see the Barwabi Canal running through the site.
Wow, Ben, that is some real good research there. Total due diligence. Instead of tracking down the published data that we have, you go and listen to Crank podcasts. Yeah, high quality research, my bro. And then, of course, notice the link that Ben provides in the next clip. He goes right back to Lying Louie.
The subsurface infrastructure consists of a network of monumental spaces. They say they found halls that are 80 meters long by 50 meters wide, and that these halls and these chambers are linked by giant corridors at depths of 40, 60, 80, 100 meters and beyond. So they're describing multiple levels of different chambers that are separated by at least 20 meters. Now that's kind of interesting.
I don't really know what to say here. Everything, and I mean everything about this, is filtered through Lying Louis de Cordier's Substack, which we've shown is filled with a giant pile, a huge reeking mound of bullshit. And Ben, he doesn't bother to do any research to try and fact check these claims. Not anything. He just takes de Cordier at his word. No due diligence, nothing. And I want to be doubly clear here. There are no known satellite methods that can map precisely underground below a handful of meters. There is nothing that scholars and experts acknowledge universally as a method that works that deep underground. I know. Everyone has heard about the Italian team that's mapped out megastructures under Giza, apparently some lost city underneath the Khafre pyramid. But again, that is based off of unpublished data and unpublished methods. They have not published a thing about these scans to verify their claims. Nobody can replicate what they've done. Instead, they've released these beautiful AI images. Very, very convincing when you're using AI images, right? Now, look, I have an interview with Dr. Sarah Parcak, the expert who literally wrote the textbook on satellite remote sensing for archaeology. And she has confirmed that these methods simply have not been verified to work in any way among the community of people that use satellite remote sensing.
And so resolution plus noise, and it's easy. It is so easy to overinterpret satellite imagery. Guilty as charged, Your Honor. I have done this before. I have gotten things wrong. So for all the guys out there who are like, yeah, but we looked at this thing and you were wrong, I admit it. I have been wrong. This is what science is. We test, we get wrong, we go to the field, it happens, we own it, we write papers about it, and then we keep pushing ahead. That's good science. But to do something and then almost willfully misinterpret it, like I could get any satellite imagery to look almost any way I wanted with enough manipulation. I am that good at it. And it scares me because that's why I'm so careful. I never misinterpret, because you calculate things with the software, with weighing pixels, with, oh, well, you don't see anything there, but trust me, it's there, right? Because it's the guise of the expert. So I think that's what these guys, they've done. They've willfully misinterpreted the data. And the satellite imagery, SAR data can't see through rock, period. The end.
SAR, synthetic aperture data, cannot see through rock beyond a couple meters, period. If you think you can do so, well, then prove it by publishing your data and your research and your methods. If you don't publish it to be replicated, it's meaningless. So, okay, let's move on though, because Ben presents a second set of more recent satellite scans produced by a different proprietary company, Merlin Burrows. Like with the claims we've seen so far from Geoscan and the Italians at Giza, no methods have been published. No data has been released by Merlin Burrows. It's the same story. It's just fantastical, tantalizing images of hidden mysteries that cannot be verified, evaluated, or replicated.
They found it by using Merlin Burrows technology. So how does this technology work? Well, according to Merlin Burrows and what I can find, this is what they say. They use high-frequency satellite images from private orbital agencies that are obtained and then run through military or classified facilities. At least they were in the case of the Hawara scans. They're used in combination with the constant vibration of the Earth's geophysical activities, so seismic data, and that they're capable of distinguishing between granite, diorite, limestone, metal. They can map voids and tunnels with precision down to a few inches, essentially. I think the description was the size of a wristwatch was kind of the resolution of this. So,
the size of a wristwatch. This sounds absolutely amazing. Archaeologists would love to have such high resolution to map out underground features. I would kill for it. All right, I wouldn't actually kill somebody for it, but man, I would be excited. I think all of my colleagues would be super excited if this technology worked. But don't tell me there's some new fancy method and then not provide any data or details or method or description of it, a technical description of your methodology, nothing. That's not how science works. You don't proclaim, I have a brand new earth-shattering method, but shh, I'm going to keep it a secret and you'll never know if it works or not. That's how pseudoscience works, man. And again, I hope you noticed in the little corner below at the bottom left corner, the only link that Ben provided for this data was to Lying Louis' Substack. No research beyond repeating the ravings of an eccentric artist. We're back to him again. So, all right. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. This is time to do some proper debunking, not just some Google debunking. In this case, I can really absolutely prove that these satellite results are 100% false using verifiable data. Data that even Ben and Lying Louis agree is verifiable data. They just don't understand any of these methods involved. But first up, if we're going to disprove it, we need to see what their claims are. So what did the Merlin Burrows team uncover? And this is the big one, baby.
What is down there seems to be also quite a mystery, because this was the most intriguing part of what Tim had said about this. And unfortunately, because Tim's no longer around, it's essentially hearsay from what he told Louis de Cordier. And this is what he had said to him as reported by Louis de Cordier, quoting Tim Akers. All layers can... What is down there seems to be also quite a mystery, because this was the most intriguing part of what Tim had said about this. And unfortunately, because Tim's no longer around, it's essentially hearsay from what he told Louis de Cordier. And this is what he had said to him as reported by Louis de Cordier, quoting Tim Akers. All layers converge at a central corridor or avenue, like the atrium of a shopping mall.
Oh my God, seriously. Everything in this story leads back to Lying Louie. It is all just filtered through this eccentric dude. There's no data, there's no methods, nothing except for Decordier's blog. Nothing else. And notice that when Ben describes this to Gullible Joe, he leaves Decordier out of it entirely.
Rumors of that type of stuff in under the ground in Egypt. I'm not saying that's what it is, but this is what Tim said about it.
Amazing.
It would be.
If there's a UFO down there, all layers converge at a central corridor or avenue like the atrium of a shopping mall where you can see all floors from one vantage point. My personal interpretation is that this entire hall was constructed to house a centrally positioned freestanding object about 40 meters long. The central object is hard to classify. It appears metallic, not stone or wood. I named it Dippy after the giant Diplodocus skeleton in the Hintsey Hall of London's, did I say that right?
Yeah, Hints, I think.
Hints Hall of London's Natural History Museum. It could be anything. Its shape resembles those tic-tac hard mints. It might also be an upright disc or even a colossal Shen ring. And what is a Shen ring?
It's like the cartouche. That thing around a cartouche.
Oh, wow. Big object alone raises profound questions. How did it get there? Why is it there? A more speculative theory is that it's some kind of portal. Oh boy, now we're going full tinfoil. Either interdimensional or interstellar, a Stargate. Its material signature is unlike anything I've seen in my entire career, but it's there, undeniably there. I'll let the future find out what Dippy is. Tim Akers. Well, he went full Art Bell right there.
He did.
Interdimensional or interstellar, a Stargate.
Hey, look, the Egyptians talk about Stargates.
Wow, it's like I'm back in good old Gullible Joe Rogan's studio trying to balance my hat and my headphones all at once because we are in full tinfoil hat territory, aren't we, right now? Now, look, let's wait a second. Notice that Ben completely leaves Louis Decordier out of here. And look, sorry, Ben, the Egyptians do not write about Stargates, at least not in any sense that reminds us of what we think of as a Stargate from Stargate movies and stuff like that. Look, saying so is deliberately misleading. It misconstrues the plentiful evidence we have for Egyptian thoughts on the afterlife and their journey up into the stars. So, okay, in his video, Ben heavily implies, with a nice little smile, that this 30 to 40 meter metallic object just might be a UFO.
An object that's 40 meters long and like tic-tac shaped, right? I mean, look, there have long been rumors and speculation about alien crafts and stuff that are beneath the sands of Egypt in some places. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying this is a remarkable claim.
He's not saying that's what this is. It's a remarkable claim if he would be, but he's not. He's just nudge, nudge, wink, wink, implying it, which of course then leads to Joe Rogan saying, let's go and invade motherfucking Egypt, yo.
It seems to be this unidentified metallic object that's freestanding in this room. It's about 40 meters long, and it seems to be tic-tac shaped, is what this report said. So
it's a fucking UFO. There's a UFO in Egypt.
The aliens did it. I don't know.
I mean,
it's tantalizing.
Could you imagine? Can you imagine if they get in there and they really do find a recovered spacecraft? Yeah, then what do we do then? Because if this is a public excavation, that's the question. Yeah. We would have to bring in the SEALs. We need to lock that place down. Maybe we need to occupy Egypt just to figure out how to fucking get this done.
Occupy Hawara. Let's just just Hawara.
You'd have to occupy the whole country. You'd have to bribe them something, give them money, whatever you got to do. Like if I was a president, that would be like my number one priority.
All right, I've upgraded from beer to scotch. I don't know what to say. This is just so fucking stupid. These guys want to go and do a massive terraforming project, occupy and invade a sovereign nation, drain the water from a large productive farming region, and drill in to find this fucking UFO. But look, we have lots of evidence for this site already, and we have clear, reliable data that definitively proves that there is not an extremely large 30 to 40 meter metallic object under the ruins of the Hawara Labyrinth. And guess what? It's in a set of data that everybody agrees is reliable. It's from that Mataha project, the very first geophysics data set that we talked about. The project that Louis de Cordier, that lovely liar of ours, was involved in, and he was thanked for his assistance. The one that both Lying Louis and UnchartedX promote as solid research. The one that the faculty from the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics published in a high-quality journal in 2010. We can all agree on this data set. It's a lovely data set. And Ben seems to think that the results from this survey are aligned with the satellite data he just presented.
Ground penetrating radar, VLF, just so many different techniques. The Geoscan and Merlin Burrows satellite technologies, I mean, they're vastly different techniques. They seem to be aligned. They're telling you the same things. So they found something, like there's something down there. What is down there seems to be also quite a mystery. The central object is hard to classify. It appears metallic, not stone or wood.
In fact, he repeats several times that these conclusions from all these different scans are similar and aligned and correlate to one another.
Geoscan, we've got Merlin Burrows, we've got Mataha expedition, ground penetrating radar, VLF, geomagneticism, like just so many different techniques showing you that the labyrinth is there. Let's look at some of the correlations between all of these scans.
But seriously, they are not correlated at all. I can prove it. Let's return to the methods from the very first scan of the Mataha project. They used something called very low frequency electromagnetism. This is the exact same method used in commercial metal detectors. This is a method that is extremely effective at detecting metal objects. So, come on guys, if there's an enormous metallic object, a possible UFO, but which Merlin Burrows and Lying Louis claim is made of metal that they can detect from satellite scans, and if that metallic object is the third the size of a football field, and it's underground at Hawara, why in the name of everything that is absolutely unholy and tinfoily did the high-quality metal detector not find it? Proper geophysics using electromagnetism and run by experts in the field of remote sensing, such a large object would 100%, beyond a shadow of a doubt, register as a significant anomaly in their data, even if it really is several dozen meters deep. It would show up in an electromagnetic survey.
It's these other disciplines that have a whole different take on it. That, and it's, again, not a criticism of archaeologists to say they're not engineers. They're not engineers.
It's just fact.
They just, yeah. It's,
look, Ben, not a criticism of you, but you claim to be an independent researcher, quote, dedicated to exploring the mysteries of the past with a focus on ancient engineering, precision, and technology. So, serious question, Ben. Why the fuck then don't you understand the basics of how these technologies work? Geophysics remote sensing using electromagnetism is a standard technology that has been used in construction, prospection, and archaeology and geology for decades. Why can't you do basic research into these technologies? If you had done any basic research into the site, you'd know that the same team from the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Physics, NRIAG, that published the Mataha project in 2010 and is still ongoing and producing new research without Lying Louis de Cordier. They published an updated article last year in 2024 in the Delta Journal of Science using two different methods, electrical resistivity tomography and transient electromagnetic methods. I cannot reiterate this enough. If there is actually a giant metallic UFO underground here, these updated and more sensitive electromagnetic methods should detect it as a giant friggin' anomaly. We have high quality, on-the-ground data sets using proven methods and with full publication of data versus the blog of Lying Louis, an eccentric artist who presents fantastic images based off of methods and data that have never been confirmed or published. Which one do you believe? Which one do you think Joe Rogan believes?
Like, let's go way out there and put that fucking tinfoil hat on tight. If they open up the labyrinth, if they figure out a way to drain the water, and they do find out that 40-meter long metallic thing is something from another place,
interdimensional,
something from another place,
right? Yeah,
or maybe break up civilization. You know, there's a lot of people that think that there were like there's us, and then there's Neanderthals, right? And then there's they all coexisted at one point in time. what if this thing coexisted with us as well? And this is a different version of what we will eventually be.
Okay, none of this makes any sense. We have a labyrinth, right? Labyrinth, is that what he said? Where aliens and Neanderthals and humans were all coexisting. Like, dude, this is just wild fantasy. All right, 1 second. Let's take off the tinfoil hat for 1 second. Don't worry, we'll have one more chance to put it on a little later. Oh my God. All right. So it's really clear that there's no 30 to 40 meter metallic object at Hawara. Hawara has been intensively investigated using multiple different methods. There is no UFO. There is no Stargate. There is nothing that enormous and metallic there at all under the Hawaran labyrinth. Again, 2 different electromagnetic surveys would have picked up such a strong signal. Go ask an expert in remote sensing. They will confirm exactly what I've said. I've already asked too. Heck, go ask an AI. Go ask ChatGPT. I've also tested that. It also confirms, it'll tell you the exact same thing, that an electromagnetic survey of the quality produced by the NRIG scholars would absolutely identify an anomaly from 30 to 40 meter long buried metallic object, even if it is several dozens of meters below the surface. Okay, all right, 1 second. I definitely need one more scotch. Sorry, just bear with me here. Just bear with me. I got my crappy little Red Label. I mean, I like Red Label. Don't get me wrong. It's okay. But Jesus Christ, we have a UFO, man, in the labyrinth. Okay, let's wrap this whole thing up. There's one big thing we need to do before we move to our conclusion, and that is we need to clear up what the so-called Labyrinth of Hawara actually is. I'm an archaeologist. I got to share some more real archaeology with you. I'm sorry. I just got to do it. But then we'll return to some of the nutso shit, okay? That's the deal. That's the trade-off. So, this mysterious monument at Hawara is only called a labyrinth. I mean, labyrinth. It's only called a labyrinth over 1,000 years after it was built. The clearest description of it comes from Herodotus, the first ancient Greek historian, with a few later Greco-Roman historians providing further details. It's pretty impressive, though. Herodotus writes,
So they made a labyrinth a little way beyond Lake Moeris, and near the place called the City of Crocodiles. I have seen it myself, and indeed words cannot describe it. If one were to collect the walls and evidence of other efforts of the Greeks, the sum would not amount to the labor and cost of this labyrinth. Though the pyramids beggar description, and each one of them is a match for many great monuments built by Greeks, this maze surpasses even the pyramids. It has 12 roofed courts, with doors facing each other. 6 face north and 6 south in 2 continuous lines, all within one outer wall. There are also double sets of chambers, 3,000 altogether, 1,500 above and the same number underground. We ourselves viewed those that are above ground, and speak of what we have seen, but we learned through conversation about the underground chambers. The Egyptian caretakers would by no means show them, as they were, they said, the burial vaults of the kings who first built this labyrinth, and of the sacred crocodiles. Thus we can only speak from hearsay of the lower chambers. The upper we saw for ourselves, and they are creations greater than human.
Whoa, I hear you. It's time. Let's get this tinfoil hat back on. Oh my God, we have secret underground chambers. It must prove the satellite scan's correct. We are here. But hold up. Sorry, we got to put the hat back down. Look, these lower vaults filled with crocodiles, as Herodotus just mentioned, are not only reported by later authors like Pliny the Elder, a Roman scholar, but also verified by archaeology. Flinders Petrie's excavations in 1888 and 1889 uncovered these lower chambers, in fact, finding exactly what our ancient texts describe: hundreds, thousands of mummified crocodiles that carry a pretty fun mystery of their own. In total, Petrie found 12 different crocodile vaults off on the other side of the pyramid, as well as crocodile burials within the lower chambers of this so-called labyrinth. In 1889, Petrie wrote about it.
I found great quantities of crocodiles buried in the chips of the ruins east and southeast of the pyramid, suggesting that this was the quarter for the crocodile burial.
Now pay close attention, because some of these crocodile vaults are clearly found in the foundation of the ruins that he excavated, a mass of stone chips that formed a platform. We'll get to that platform in a second, because it's also kind of cool. It's the labyrinth. It's the labyrinth, Joe. It's the labyrinth. Because this monument, the labyrinth, had been dismantled in the Roman period, Petrie really wanted to find undisturbed rooms. The real colorful stuff, though, comes from his notebooks, with snippets published in Uphill's book from 2000 on the Labyrinth of Hawara. In some cases, these crocodile vaults are disturbed, as Petrie wrote in December of 1888.
Alas, the crocodile sepulchres have been utterly ravaged. Not only ravaged, but down to even the stone lining of the chambers, but reused for human remains and re-ravaged. A Ptolemy coin of about 150 BC was found in the sand about 1/3 down. So the human burials must be Ptolemaic latest. The ravaging of the chapels must have been under the Persians at the latest, and the burials 26th dynasty at the latest. The work of the strong hieroglyphics found is not Ramesside, and if not 26, I must put it to 12th. Hence, the history of these places is pretty nearly defined now. In another of the crocodile pits, we found a great number of wooden coffins, nearly all rotted to touchwood. The work of the coffins, and of some beads found, seems to me to be pre-Ptolemaic. If so, the looting of the crocodiles must be pre-Persian, and so pre-26th dynasty. And thus I should be led to attribute these croc sepulchres to perhaps the 12th after all.
All the clues from artifacts to hieroglyphs to the style of coffins confirms that at least some of these crocodile burials are from the 12th dynasty, the time of Amenemhat III, who built the nearby pyramid. In another entry from the same month, December of 1888, Petrie got lucky and found an undisturbed crocodile vault.
They seem very promising, as there are many signs that they have never been disturbed. The earth over the entrance is all stratified far and wide without any sign of being cut through in later times, and whatever plundering may have been done must have been done very early, if at all, as there are small crocs buried in the stratified earth over the mound of the pits. Apparently the ground over a pit was a sanctified place for all the small fry and the ceremonial dummy crocodiles buried as devotional objects.
The entire area here was part of the cult of Sobek, the crocodile god that was the center of worship in this entire region called the Fayum Oasis. This head of Sobek, now in the Ashmolean Museum, was actually found by Petrie here at Hawara. Herodotus notes their obsession with crocodiles in the region.
The crocodile is esteemed sacred by some of the Egyptians. By others, he is treated as an enemy. Those who live near Thebes and those who dwell around Lake Moeris, the Fayum region, including Hawara, regard them with a special veneration. The people of Elephantine, on the other hand, are so far from considering these animals as sacred that they even eat their flesh.
Do you remember that Polish-Egyptian expedition that Decordier claimed was jailed and shut down? Guess what? They actually have a publication on some of these crocodile bones they found in their excavations. Again, finding this just took some basic Google debunking. It's free to view. The report that Ben Van Kerkwyk linked to mentioned a Professor Dr. Mohammed Abdel Hadi as the Egyptian research coordinator. Google his name, and boom, you get this article that he co-authored about crocodile bones that they found, with a focus on how the soil is damaging their bones. Regardless, just look at these crocs. Aren't they pretty cool? Tavro, do you want to be mummified like one of your crocodile friends? We could even make some fake mummies for you. It would be a lot of fun. We're going to bury you in the labyrinth. And these crocodiles were dated later, to around the period of Herodotus, again matching the historical record that shows the ongoing worship of Sobek, the crocodile god, at the site. And we know for sure that this cult extends back to the original construction of the monument because Petrie also excavated statues dating back to the 12th dynasty in the labyrinth itself. Sorry, Joe, I'm going to keep making fun of you for saying labyrinth. These include several statues of the pharaoh Amenemhat III, whose pyramid is just right next door, and several fragments from statues of Sobek, the crocodile god, who's worshipped right here with these mummified crocs. But what's absolutely mind-blowing is that a whole bunch of the crocodile mummies that were unearthed at Hawara are fakes. They're dummy crocodiles. They are mummy wrappings shaped like crocodiles and stuffed with straw and sand and pebbles, which is absolutely pretty cool and wild. As Petrie noted in his 1889 publication,
in every direction, the work brought up crocodiles of all sizes, from monsters 15 feet long to infants, and even eggs. The apparent number was swelled moreover by quantities of dummies, evidently made for a ceremonial purpose. The imitation crocodile mummies consist of bundles of reeds or grass, with an egg or only a single bone inside, and they seem to have been intended to testify to a worshipper's devotion to Sebek by such pious care bestowed on the sacred animal. Doubtless their preparation and sale was a priestly trade.
Some of these mummies, like one CT scanned at the Manchester Museum, did include real crocodiles, but a large number were fakes or mummies. The two scanned from the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge were fakes, and an article on them in The Guardian provocatively claims,
modern medical science has exposed the villainy of the crocodile mummy sellers of Hawara. More than 2,000 years after they defied the edict of a pharaoh and turned neatly bandaged bundles of rubbish into a nice little earner.
I'm not sure if fakes is really the right way to put this, as symbolic offerings were absolutely a thing in ancient Egypt, and Petrie mentioned there's oftentimes a single bone or an egg inside there. And these kind of symbolic offerings, by the way, they're a common thing in the Greco-Roman world as well. Either way, they're actually pretty cool, right? I mean, why aren't we talking more about these crocodile mummies? Because they are totally badass. But I really want to emphasize here, besides the crocodile mummies being pretty cool, the important point to emphasize is that Flinders Petrie did excavate down into the lower chambers that contained the crocodile mummies, just as Herodotus and other ancient authors like Pliny the Elder describe at the site. So, okay. What the heck is this labyrinth? I mean labyrinth. Labyrinth? How does he say it? Labyrinth. We'll have to listen to Joe again. Look, unfortunately, so little of it is actually preserved. The statues, inscriptions, the shrines, they tell us it's directly related to the Pyramid of Amenemhat III, right next door. And its position right next to it, literally right next to it, would define it as the mortuary temple where the pharaoh was worshipped as a god after he died. This interpretation correlates with mortuary temples found at pretty much every single other royal pyramid found in Egypt. So, we have lots of parallels to this. However, this one's larger than most other mortuary temples attached to pyramids, which of course is what made it so impressive. And when it was ruined 1,000 or so years after its construction, the ancient Greeks wandered through the ruins and thought of it as a maze or labyrinth. We can see this clearly with the description of the historian Diodorus Siculus, describing Amenemhat III's labyrinth.
He did build himself a tomb known as the Labyrinth, which was not so remarkable for its size, as it was impossible to imitate in respect to its ingenious design. For a man who enters it cannot easily find his way out, unless he gets a guide who is thoroughly acquainted with the structure. And some say that Daedalus, visiting Egypt and admiring the skill shown in the building, also constructed for Minos, the king of Crete, a labyrinth like the one in Egypt, in which was kept, as the myth relates, the beast called Minotaur.
And I want to be clear, there is no Minotaur. This is a myth. And just like at Hawara, there is no actual labyrinth at Knossos. What there is are the ruins of an enormous Bronze Age palace. Not too different, perhaps, from the mortuary temple of Amenemhat III at Hawara. And you can see here, because the palace at Knossos is much better preserved, you can see its maze-like layout of corridors running in various directions, magazines running off. It's absolutely a labyrinth. If you've ever had the pleasure to wander through a well-preserved archaeological site with a mass of ruins, it has the feeling of a labyrinth. Joe, I suggest you go visit some archaeological sites. You might get lost. It'll be fun. So it's really no wonder that the authors call this a labyrinth. It's no wonder that they call the one at Hawara a labyrinth either. And I want to be really clear. This one at Hawara is impressive and enormous. Petrie fully defined the platform from this structure. It was a bed of chips, plaster and limestone chips. It's what he calls beton. And he vividly describes this platform and its massive scale.
Beneath all these fragments was a uniform smooth bed of beton or plaster, on which the pavement of the building had been laid. While on the south side, where the canal had cut across the site, it could be seen how the chip stratum, about 6 feet thick, suddenly ceased, at what had been the limits of the building. No trace of architectural arrangement could be found to help in identifying this great structure with the labyrinth, but the mere extent of it proved that it was far larger than any temple known in Egypt. All the temples of Karnak or Luxor, and a few on the western side of Thebes, might have been placed together within the vast space of these buildings at Hawara. We know from Pliny and others how for centuries the labyrinth had been a great quarry for the whole district, and its destruction occupied such a body of masons that a small town existed there. All this information and recorded position of it agrees so closely with what we can trace that no doubt can now remain regarding the position of one of the wonders of Egypt.
As I said, it might only be a platform, but it's actually really fucking cool. Or at least it's really fucking big. It's a shame that it's not preserved any better, but having dug a lot of sites, that's just how archaeology goes. You get what you get. People destroy stuff. That's life, man. That's life. But what we do have at the site, and parallels to other sites, gives some good credibility to the ancient descriptions we have about this mortuary temple of Amenemhat III being an extremely impressive monument. And it's clear that the descriptions match our understanding of the Middle Kingdom construction that we know elsewhere, as Dr. Chris Mountain makes clear.
The chambers and the mazy passages hither-thither through the courts were an unending marvel to us as we passed from court to apartment and from apartment to colonnade, from colonnades again to more chambers, then into yet more courts. Over all this is a roof made of stone like the walls. The walls are covered with carven figures, and every court is set round with pillars of white stone most exactly fitted together. Well, at this site, a number of sculptures matching the carven figures of Herodotus' description were found. This is possibly the finest, discovered by Petrie in his second phase of excavations. It's a little sort of shrine, quite unusual in its design, with two figures of kings, Amenemhat III himself and his successor Amenemhat IV. The two of them crop up together elsewhere as well, for example, in that chapel of Renanutet at Medinet Mardi. That line, white stone most exactly fitted together, of course, reminds us of what we've already seen in the Pyramid of Lahoun. I took the photograph on the right. It's actually close to the entranceway to the burial compartments at Lahoun, precisely because my eye was caught by this fine white limestone pieces closely fitted together. And we see that also elsewhere. This is the interior of that rock-cut tomb of Senusret III at Abydos, where again, fantastic bright white limestone, the joins almost invisible. We see it also in the staircase entranceway to that pyramid of a daughter of Amenikemau at Dashur, and even in the interior of Amenemhat III's own other pyramid, the Black Pyramid at Dashur on the left-hand side. You can see some of the internal compartments here, very bright white stone. This is very typically 12th dynasty, so it's no surprise if we are thinking that the labyrinth was indeed at Hawara, that Herodotus would come across something like this.
Exactly. White stone closely fit together does not mean some advanced civilization that has been lost with high technology. It's Middle Kingdom Egypt, man. Nobody even claims these Middle Kingdom monuments as being special or advanced or anything like that. They're the pretty much cut and dry Middle Kingdom Egypt monuments, and yet they have perfectly fit white stones. It's something that people with Bronze Age technology could make. Now, look, I want to be clear. Seriously. I really do not mind people fantasizing, putting on their tinfoil hats, and thinking about all sorts of cool shit that might have been. I don't care if you want to think there's a fucking UFO buried at Hawara. I mean, look, we've got clear evidence against it, but whatever, go wild. Seriously, believe whatever you want, talk about whatever you want, go do mushrooms, become the golden god, and climb into that UFO. It is all good on my end. But look, the real problem is these assholes, from lying Louis de Cordier to piss poor researcher Ben van Kerkwyk, and of course, good old gullible Joe Rogan. They all just shit on us. They shit on the archaeologists, the teachers, the scholars that are doing the real hard work, not getting paid much money for it, and we're the ones that are revealing the actual evidence for our fabulous human history. And what you guys do is you just shit on us. You invent conspiracy theories about people being thrown in prison that have never been thrown in prison. You say that we're shutting down research and we're gatekeeping research that has been published fully, and you can't even bother to Google it and find it. It's so easy to disprove it. And look, I just don't know what to say. Much of this data is available free online or in a library. You can walk into your university library and download the few papers that are actually behind a paywall. And by your university library, I mean a university that's near you. They'll let you in with an ID. So why do you guys got to be such assholes to us, man?
Yeah, and to deny the possibility of even exploring that concept because people are gonna get their feelings hurt because because they're so bitchy to each other. That's the craziest thing you find out about these academics. They are so bitchy to each other. When anybody has any sort of an idea that's heterodox, any sort of an idea that's outside of the narrative that they've been teaching forever, they attack each other's reputation.
Yeah,
they're little sociopaths.
It is vicious. That's their version of the fight. I guess
I guess I'm just a little sociopath, man. Look, the only reason I got involved in debunking this fake archaeology bullshit is because you guys attack us and lie about us. You can believe whatever you want about history. I don't fucking care. But you sit on your podcast and you bitch about us. And you make millions of people hate archaeologists for some stupid fucking reason.
Encounter some of these very arrogant professors and people that have these ridiculous ideas and think that they should be the absolute gatekeeper of information, which is so crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I've heard you call us gatekeepers hundreds of times, but as I've shown here, the evidence for gatekeeping is bullshit. Zahi never threw Professor Shaheen in jail. These projects that were shut down are actually published. You guys are the whiny little bitches sitting here griping about shit that isn't real and poisoning the well, causing people to hate on scholars for no reason other than to make your fucking money. That's all you're doing, making money by talking about UFOs and shit that aren't fucking at Hawara. And then what you do is you got to wrap it all up in a conspiracy to make it sell. And you know what? Joe, you've done this repeatedly. You've repeatedly attacked not just archaeologists, but me myself. I came on your show in good faith. I showed reams of evidence to your audience. You actually seemed impressed about it. I didn't attack anybody's character. And then months later, you just started attacking me on a very personal level while I was undergoing cancer treatment, man. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Archaeology with Flint Dibble. Let's dig in right away to what our favorite podcaster, good old Joe Rogan, said about me last week.
The Flint Dibble approach. That guy embodies what you don't like about academia. You see him physically, he embodies it. It's like that's what it is. It's these weak men, these weird, kind of bitchy, weak men.
Hey there, Joe. I just found out yesterday that you ridiculed my appearance in front of millions of people on your podcast. Here I am. I have had for the last, 6 hours in the hospital to consider this while I get treated for my stage 4 cancer with an infusion. You know that I've been fighting cancer for the last 4 years. You've mentioned it to millions of people on your podcast. Joe Rogan, you're a coward who calls a cancer fighter weak. Yeah, man. I'm still waiting for a legitimate apology on this. Oh, wait. You think this weak sauce here is an apology? Let's listen.
To stop making fun of retarded children on the internet because they have families. Well, we do sometimes, but I've had to apologize to multiple families of mentally handicapped people because we've done bits on the show, and I mean, we've gotten into where they would come to me and be like, what is wrong with you? This is like a child that has like Down syndrome. We're like, we had no idea that they.
But then they get on the phone with Lewis and they're like, I didn't mind. It was funny.
The problem is,
didn't that happen? Didn't someone say to you? They were like, I know you're kidding.
Well, no, the twice now that happened, and both times I ended up becoming very friendly with the family. They came out to see me at shows. They brought the kid.
Oh, now it's your burden.
Because
that's the problem is you're saying things with your friends like you would normally say.
Right. Yeah.
But then you don't realize.
Ron Bennington calls it corner talk. Just corner talk with the guys.
But there's a real person on the end of these stories sometimes, and that's the thing. The only thing that's changed is I think in the beginning we would just say whatever. There'd be a silly story, and now I'm going like, well, all right, is this person going to hear this? And it's just a normal person who's like, their parents are raising a special needs kid. It's a tough enough life as it is.
Buddy, I felt terrible last time I came in here When you talked about, I was like, yeah, there's that video going around of that girl freaking out, and I was just going like, yeah, it's just like she wasn't ready for this moment, but I didn't say the name on purpose. And there's so many videos on the internet that are like, Jay takes a shit on this girl.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's not what I did.
Well, sometimes you say things because you're just talking, and then you realize, like, God, that other person's going to hear that. I did that recently, and I'd like to apologize to this guy. There's this guy named Flint Dibble, who's an archaeologist, and I said, he attacks other archaeologists like Graham Hancock, and he says some terrible things, but what I did was very counterproductive. What I said was, like, these weak, bitchy men, and I named him. I'm like, and then he tweeted about it. He said, I have stage 4 cancer. And I'm like, fucking forgot he had cancer. I didn't mean him physically. I meant his behavior, but it made me feel bad. So
well, you guys got a bitch body that's been
I want to
take over
tell him
cancer.
I was wrong. What I said, I shouldn't have said. There's sometimes I say things and I just think I'm talking with friends, and I realize it's going to hurt someone's feelings on the other. And it's counterproductive. Like, I'm doing the exact thing I'm accusing him of doing. He's attacking other people. I'm attacking him. It's stupid.
And we can be funny.
Look, man, I mean, I kind of appreciate it, but can't you see that you're still doing the same thing towards archaeologists right now? The bitchy accusations that you and Ben are airing nonstop. In this case, towards Dr. Hawass and Shaheen in Egypt. I don't think you've learned your lesson at all, Joe. So, man, Joe, stop being a weak little bitch. Stop lying about archaeologists on your show. We are these ordinary people that you guys were talking about. It's absolutely pathetic, man, that you're still doing this. And doubly so, saying you want to apologize to me, to other people on air, is not the same thing as actually apologizing to me. Somebody else sent me this clip, and it wasn't you. So let's be clear. When you call me a weak, bitchy man, you specified me as, quote, physically embodying it. So I don't know what to say. This comes off as more of an excuse, misrepresenting what you said, rather than an actual apology, because you definitely meant it physically. And you know what? Last of all, Joe, you have my email address. If you want to apologize to me, man up and actually apologize to me. Given how many times you've insulted me and called me a liar, maybe we should have a face-to-face conversation. I am willing to defend my views on archaeology and everything I've said to you face-to-face. But you know what? I don't think you are man enough to do so. So, look, that's it. I guess I've said my piece. This was one fucking deep-ass rabbit hole, man. But you know what? I'm not sorry I went down it. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I got to share some cool archaeology with everybody. And let's be really clear. I got two last things to say, okay? They're good, I promise. So, first of all, I want to say I am absolutely privileged to spend my life devoted to archaeology. I uncover and I study our human history. It's fucking cool. I absolutely love doing it. I love sharing it with you all too. And you know what? I've had the chance to excavate and explore some of the coolest sites in the world. From Egypt to Greece to Italy to Ukraine to Romania to France and plenty of other places in between, Albania. And look, there's nothing cooler than coming face to face with the figure of somebody from thousands of years ago. And there's nothing cooler than rooting through their trash and puzzling it together to figure out what it means about their behavior and their lives. It's so much cooler than the bullshit these weak, bitchy dudes like Ben and Joe, what they peddle. This is just, the real shit. Like, I will take the real shit any day over the fake shit. Like, I love reading a fictional book, but the real life is so much more interesting. And look, I got one last gem. I just want to share what Ben and Joe actually think about their audience, because I think it says a lot about their goals here. All right.
Yeah, maybe
someone should do it. I don't think enough people know. A lot of people know that we're listening to this podcast, but not enough people that would do something, that can do something. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like we reach a lot of knuckleheads. We reach a lot with a wide variety of people, but the percentage of people that have the resources to
make something happen.
They have to work something out with the Egyptian government, right? So they have to do something with those dams.
You reach a lot of knuckleheads. This is literally what they think their audience is. Knuckleheads. Because they know that their audience is not going to fact check those lies. just like I've done in this video. They know that they can say whatever they want. Put on those tinfoil hats. Where's my hat? Where's my hat? Put it on those tinfoil hats. UFOs, aliens, labyrinths. And the audience will just eat it up. Look, the true conspiracy is these guys are the arrogant, weak, bitchy men. They know the game they're playing. They're not idiots. They're making money off of this. They know that the bullshit they're spreading is bullshit. Or you know what? That's my opinion, man. Thanks for tuning in. Love and archaeology to y'all.
Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, flint, pun, dibble.